Alright guys, I am back once again with another deck profile from Cardfight Vanguard Dear Days on Nintendo Switch. This time we're doing version 1 of my Keter Sanctuary Phantom Blaster Overlord deck. So of course version 1, everything through first additional card pass through the booster set 7. And this deck is another one of the encounter decks based around the Shadow Paladin units used by Rin Suzugamori in the original series. Specifically the Cross Ride for Phantom Blaster Dragon, Phantom Blaster Overlord. Which, as you can see, this is the second Phantom Blaster build that I have done. I have a separate build that is based fully around just Phantom Blaster Dragon, so you can check that out if you want to. But this is the more standard build based around Phantom Blaster Overlord. That does have him in the ride deck and just has you shoving PvD into your soul in order to activate his effect. But anyway, we will be going through this deck and then we'll show it off in one card fight. So starting first, as always, with our ride deck, we have our Grade 0 starter, which is our first Shadow Paladin encounter card, Full Bow. So when it's rode upon, if you win second, draw a card. Standard D-Series starter. Next up, for our Grade 1, we have Blaster Javelin. So his auto ability, when this unit is rode upon by Blaster Dark, reveal the top card of your deck, call it to rearguard circle as rest if it is a unit card, and discard it if it isn't. So the only non-unit card we're running in the deck is the Blitz Order Elementaria Sanctitude, which of course you could just replace with a 4th standard Perfect Guard if you're that worried about, the skill failing because of that one card. But most of the time it shouldn't, so it just lets you call down one from the top of your deck as rest. Doesn't matter what you call, because whatever gets called is just going to get sacrificed for Blaster Dark's ability anyway, so it effectively just reduces the cost of that skill. And then he also has a continuous ability when he's on rearguard circle that says, during your turn, if you have a Vanguard Blaster in its card name, this unit gets power plus 2,000. So he's 10k attacker or booster when he's on your board, and you should always have a Vanguard Blaster in its name, so that skill should always be active. And we are running extra copies of this in the main deck, so this skill does actually come into play sometimes. So next for our Grade 2, we of course have Blaster Dark. So his auto ability, when this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle or Rearguard Circle, you counterblast one and retire another rearguard. To choose one of your opponent's rearguards, retire it, and this unit gets drive +1 until end of turn. So when you ride into this, you'll get to superior call the one off of Blaster Javelin, so the retire part of that cost is effectively nullified. So it's just a counterblast one for a retire one and an extra drive when it's on your Vanguard Circle. And again, we are running extra copies of this in the main deck, and this whole deck is actually focused around calling this card out during the battle phase to rearguard. So if it is placed on rearguard, you do have that option again to get the retire. The extra drive won't really affect anything when he's on rearguard, unless you happen to luck into your over trigger on that turn. But yeah, that ability can be used in both those situations. Then he also has his continuous ability when he's on rearguard circle that says, during your turn, if your rearguard was retired this turn, this unit gets power plus 5,000. So he can also be a 15k beat stick when he's on your rearguard circle if you retired a unit that turn. So then for our Grade 3, we have Phantom Blaster Overlord. So this card is the Cross Ride for Phantom Blaster Dragon. However, we actually are not going to be cross-riding into it, because we are running it in the ride deck, so you just ride directly into it. And he has his continuous ability that says, if your soul has a Phantom Blaster Dragon, this unit gets critical +1. So, like I said, Phantom Blaster Dragon is in the deck, and we can shove it into our soul using the skill of Skull Witch Nemen, who we'll go over later. So you can get this skill online that way to gain the extra crit, but you do have to have those extra pieces in order to do that. Since we are riding directly into this one, you won't naturally have PvD in your soul. But this card also has its auto ability that says when this unit attacks, you can retire 2 of your rearguards, choose a Blaster Dark from your soul or drop, call it to rearguard circle, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, that called unit and this unit gets power plus 10,000 until end of turn. So by retiring 2 of your rearguards, you can superior call Blaster Dark from your soul or drop, and power up both Blaster Dark and himself by 10k. So this is a very powerful skill. It can give you a 4th attack, which your Blaster Dark, it'll get the 10k from this skill, assuming your opponent is at least at grade 3. And he will also gain the plus 5k from his own skill since he retired 2 units in order to pay the cost for this. So your Blaster Dark should be swinging for a minimum of 25k, and then your Vanguard should be swinging for at least 23k to crit if you get PBD into your soul. So overall, very powerful card, letting you mount a pretty strong offense. So that is our ride deck. Moving on to the main deck. First off, we do have our 3 additional copies of PBO, SP, of course, for Persona Ride purposes. Next up, we have 4 copies of Phantom Blaster Dragon, which all of this card's skills are only active when it's on Vanguard Circle, and this card's never going to be on Vanguard Circle, so I'm not even going to bother going through all this. Like I said, I have a separate build built entirely around this card. If you want to check out that video, it is already up. Playlist link in the description of this video, of course. But this card is only in this deck to be fodder that you shove into your soul in order to get that continuous ability of PBO online. So you don't actually use any of his skills for anything, he's just here for the name. So then lastly for our grade 3s we have 2 copies of Virulence Dragon. So his auto ability, when this unit is retired from rearguard circle for the cost of your card, you can counterblast 1 and soul blast 1. And all of your units with Blaster and their card names get power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So you gotta be retiring 2 units every turn anyway for PBO skill, so if you retire him, then you can use his skill in order to power up a minimum of at least 2 units on your field, because you'll have a Blaster on your Vanguard circle, and then Blaster Dark on your rearguard circle, potentially more on your field if you have some Blaster Javelins out, or a second copy of Blaster Dark in your front row, or what have you. So just a good card in order to increase your offensive power. So that's all of our grade 3s. Moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we do have 3 additional copies of Blaster Dark. This entire deck revolves around this card, and if you don't have it, you're pretty much fucked. So it is helpful to have those extra copies in case the one from your ride deck ends up getting bound or bottom decked or what have you. So it's nice to have a backup just in case. So next up, we have our next encounter card, which is 4 copies of Skull Witch Nemen. So her continuous ability says during your turn, if you have a Vanguard with Blaster and its card name, this unit gets power plus 5,000. So as you can see, she is just a 5k base, so that'll just bring her up to the standard 10k that a grade 2 would normally have. But then she has her very important auto ability that says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if your Vanguard's clan is only Shadow Paladin, you can counterblast 1 and put a card from hand into your soul to draw 2 cards. So this is the only way to get Phantom Blaster Dragon into our soul, again to give your Vanguard that extra crit. She's also the draw engine of the deck, being a counterblast 1 for a +1 essentially. If you have extra copies of this after you get PBD into your soul, then you can, of course, call her again to just feel your soul more, while also increasing your card advantage. And after you use her skill, she is just a vanilla 10k on board, so you can also retire her for PBO's cost, since she's pretty much done her job at that point. So overall, very, very vital card to the deck. So next up, we have 2 copies of Knight of Grief Grania. So her continuous ability during the battle that this unit attacked, if you have a Vanguard with Blaster and its card name, this unit gets power plus 5,000. Now she is just a 9k base, so this will put her to 14, which is just enough to poke a grade 3 Vanguard without a booster. So there is that at least. And then she also has her auto ability that says when this unit is retired from rearguard circle by the cost of your Vanguard, you can counterblast one and put this card into your hand. So she can recycle herself if you retire her for PBO's cost. So this can effectively change the cost of his skill from a retire 2 to a counterblast 1 and retire 1. So this card can be helpful in helping you maintain your card advantage. So then lastly for our grade 2s, we have 3 copies of Knight of Inheritance Emmeline. So her first auto ability, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle from hand, you can Soul Blast 1, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 unit card with Blaster and its card name from among them, call it to rearguard circle, or reveal it and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. If you put a card into your hand, you choose a card from your hand and discard it. So this card can help you dig for your blaster units, specifically helpful in digging out that PBD to get into your hand if you don't already have one, so you can shove it into your soul with Nemen. If you do call to your board, it's a Soul Blast 1 for a +1. If you put it into your hand, you have to discard, so it's a Soul Blast 1 for a ±0, but it can get you a vital combo piece, either a PBD or a PBO for a Persona Ride the next turn. And of course, there is the chance that it whiffs and you don't find a blaster in the top 5, and in that case, you just wasted a soul. But, you know, what are you going to do? So then she has her second auto ability that says when your unit with Blaster and its card name attacks, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So you should have 2 blasters at minimum attacking before her, so she should be a 20k base on most turns. Potentially up to 25 if you have a blaster in your front row to attack before your Vanguard, and then you attack with PBO and retire it and call Blaster Dark. You could get 3 blaster attacks in before her, so she would gain 15,000 power in that situation. But either way, she can be a very powerful beat stick. So that is all of our grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s, we do have our 3 additional copies of Blaster Javelin. Just having extra blasters in the deck makes Emmeline's skill more consistent. It makes Virulence Dragon's skill more potent. Just overall makes the deck flow very nicely. So next we have 2 copies of Prohibited Sight Witch Erunmis. So her auto ability, when this unit is retired from rearguard circle by the ability of your Vanguard with Blaster and its card name during your turn, you can Soul Blast 2 to choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it. So again, another card that activates when you retire it off of PBO's cost. Just gives you another control option for you to snipe one of your opponent's rearguards. So pretty useful card. So then the only other grade 1s we're running are our Sentinels. So we have 3 copies of Palladium Zeal Dragon, which is just your standard Perfect Guard. And then of course we have our 1 copy of the Nationless Blitzorder Elementaria Sanctitude, which you can play without paying its cost if your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive. So that's all of our grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s, we do just have our trigger lineup, which is 7 crits, 4 draws, 4 heals, and 1 over. So starting first with the crit triggers, we have 4 copies of Volition Rigor Dragon, which is just your vanilla crit. Additionally, we have 3 copies of Blade Feather Dragon, crit with a skill. At the end of the battle it boosted, you can put it into your soul to choose one of your units, and it gets power plus 2,000 until end of turn. I don't think I've ever used this skill in this deck at all. It's not really vital to have or anything. If you'd rather run 4 of this and 3 of the vanilla crit, you can, but you know, it's pretty much just player preference. So next up for our draws, we have 4 copies of Protection Magic Prorobi. So her continuous ability, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets shield plus 5,000. So of course your 10k shield draw trigger. And then for our heals, we have 4 copies of Healer of Heavenly Staff Arches, which is just the vanilla heal. Of course, if you want to run any of the effect heals, you can. And then lastly, our Overtrigger. Light Dragon Deity of Honors, a Martanoa. So his additional effect, until end of turn, you also perform drive checks for the battles your rear guards attack. So extra drive checks, always useful. And of course, like I mentioned before, if you use Blaster Dark's on-call ability, he will gain that extra drive. So if you sack into this, then he will have twin drive, even on rearguard circle. So that is the deck. So we will go ahead and have our one fight with it. And we'll face Kai this time. And we will be going first.
Stand up, the Vanguard.
Alright, so we'll discard Blaster Javelin to ride Blaster Javelin. And then just end our turn.
My turn. Draw. Ride. Skill発動. Call. Vanguard に attack.
And we will let that through.
Check the drive trigger. Get heal trigger.
It gets a heal trigger that is wasted.
Damage check. Turn end.
Alright, so we'll discard Blaster Dark to ride Blaster Dark. And use Blaster Javelin skill to superior call our Persona Ride copy from the top of the deck. Oh well. We'll use Blaster Dark skill to retire him. And then we can take out his Gojo and gain an extra drive. And I think we'll just go ahead and attack.
Vanguard に attack. No guard. Drive check. Critical trigger.
And we get a crit trigger, nice.
Critical plus. Power plus. Drive check.
Which, quick story here, years ago, way back when I was in high school, back when the original Booster Set 5 from the original series was coming out, which was the first release of the original version of Phantom Blaster Overlord, me and a few friends actually went to the pre-release booster draft tournament for that set. And during that booster draft, I actually pulled a SP copy of Phantom Blaster Overlord. Which, that was the only real-life Vanguard tournament I've ever been to, actually. Which we had to drive like a fucking hour to get there, too, because there aren't any card shops near where I live. As he pulls a crit trigger. And I get a heal that is wasted.
Damage check. Skill発動.
Then Gojo's skill will let him countercharge.
Turn end.
Alright, so let's discard one of these PBDs to ride Phantom Blaster Overlord. And then we can go ahead and call Skull Witch Nimmin. Use her ability to counter blast and shove PBD into our soul. So we will gain the extra crits, and then we get to draw 2. So then we'll go ahead and call Emmeline. Use her ability, to Soul Blast, and we'll Soul Blast out Blaster Dark. And check the top 5, and we find a Blaster Dark. So let's go ahead, let's see. Yeah, we don't have much else in our hand, so we'll go ahead and call him to rear guard. He's just gonna end up being retire fodder, but that's fine. We're not gonna use his skill because he doesn't have any rear guards out. So now we can just go ahead and actually we'll move him to the front row, and that'll give Emmeline more power. So now we can go ahead and attack with Blaster Dark first. To trigger Emmeline's skill to give her plus 5k. So then we can attack with Phantom Blaster Overlord, which again will power up Emmeline. And then we can use Overlord skill to retire 2. So we'll retire Blaster Dark and Nemen. And then we can Superior Call Blaster Dark from our drop. And again, don't activate his skill, which we won't gain any power because he's only a grade 2. But we get a draw trigger. And let's see, we'll need another trigger for that to hit, so we'll give that power to Blaster Dark. And yeah, no trigger, so good thing I didn't risk it. So now we can attack with Blaster Dark again, and power up Emmeline for a 3rd time. He gets a crit trigger. And then we can attack with Emmeline. And he guards. My turn. Draw. Light the Vanguard. Skill 発動. Sperial Coil. Skill 発動. Skill 発動だ. Power プラス. Power プラス. リアガードにアタックだ. And he's going to attack into our rear guard, so we can't guard with anything from our hand, so we'll have to just let that through. It gets another crit trigger. So now he restands as Vanguard, and that is 2 crits, so we probably need to block that. So let's see, we'll block it with those. He gets a heal trigger, which he does get. And I won't let that one through. And we get a crit trigger that is wasted. Alright, so now we can Persona Ride. So then we got another Emmeline over here, so we'll go ahead and call her. Use her skill again to Soul Blast.
スキル発動
And we find a PBD. So we have no reason to put him into our hand. So we'll call him to rearguard and just use him as fodder.
スペリオルコ
And we'll also go ahead and call Blaster Javelin. And we'll put him behind our Vanguard. And I think we are good. So we'll actually move Blaster Dark back and attack with Phantom Blaster Dragon because he'll hit a magic number. So now we will attack with Phantom Blaster Dragon,
ヴァンガードにアタック
which will power up Emmeline since he's got Blaster and everything.
ガードだ
And he guards. So then we can attack with our
ヴァンガード
Vanguard,
にアタック
which again will power up
スキ
Emmeline.
ル発動パワープラス
And use PBO skill to retire Blaster Dark and PBD.
終わりにしましょ
And Superior Call Blaster Dark back
う
from
ス
our
ペリオ
drop.
ルコパワープラスパワープラス
Power up both him and our Vanguard by 10 key. And we're not going to use Blaster Dark skill.
スキル
And he
発動
perfect guards.
完全ガードドライブチェックドライブチェックドロートリガー
We get a draw trigger, nice. So let's give that draw to Blaster Dark.
パワープラス
So then we can attack with Blaster Dark,
ヴァンガードにアタック
which again will power up Emmeline.
パワープラスノーガードだダメージチェック
And then attack with Emmeline.
アタックノーガードだ
And he lets that through too. So that puts him to 5.
ターンエンドですマイターンドローグレンの炎で終焉の始まりを告げよ
And he does get his Cross Ride,
スキル発動
going to Dragonic Overlord the end.
パワープラスパワープラスヴァンガードにアタック
Alright, let's see. We probably need to guard that, because if he gets a crit, I would die. So we'll guard. Yeah, that'll be, what, 2 to pass, so that'll be fine. Hopefully.
ガードチェックザドライブトリガーチェックザドライブトリガーゲットヒールトリガ
He gets a heal trigger, which he does get.
ーパワープラス来たれこれが終焉の始まりだエターナルアポカリプス
Now he can restand as Vanguard and attack again. So let's see, he does still get Twin Drive. So let's see, we'll guard. We'll guard again with those.
ガードチェックザドライブトリガーチェックザドライブトリガー
And no triggers.
ヴァンガードにアタックだ
And we'll let that one through.
ノーガードダメージチェックオーバートリ
Oh, we pull our over trigger. Alright, well that nullified that damage.
ターンエンド僕のターンですドロー
Alright, so now we can Persona Ride again.
混沌なる静寂に叫びし絶望。幻すら見られぬ闇。暗き闇の力を我。ペルソナライド。
And let's see, we'll call a room miss back here. And I'm actually going to call Virulence Dragon over top of Blaster Dark. And I think we are good with that. So we'll go ahead and attack with Virulence Dragon first.
Vanguardにアタック。
ノーガードダメージチェック。
Then we can attack with Overlord.
Vanguardにアタック。
Which will power up Emmeline by 5k.
パワープラス。
And then use Overlord skill to retire a Rune Miss and Virulence Dragon.
終わりにしましょう。
To revive Blaster Dark once again.
パワープラス。パワープラス。
Power up our units. And then we can use a Rune Miss's skill to Soul Blast 2.
スキル発動。
And we'll retire Nehalem. Then use Virulence Dragon skill to Counter Blast and Soul Blast.
スキル発動。
And all our units with Blaster in their name get plus 5k. So that's an extra 10k to our middle row. And we're not going to use Blaster Dark skill. Any perfect guards.
完全ガード。
ドライブチェック。ドライブチェック。
So then we'll attack with Blaster Dark for 40,000. Power up Emmeline yet again.
パワープラス。
ノーガードだ。
Oh, and he's got to let it through.
ダメージチェック。ゲット。ドロートリガー。
And that draw does not save him, so we won with that.
やはり僕の勝ちですね。
So there you go. That was our Phantom Blaster Overlord deck. I do like this deck quite a bit. Definitely brings back memories of me playing Phantom Blaster Overlord back in the original series. So I will be back soon with more deck profiles. But until then, I guess that's all for this video. So lots of luck to you and yours.